rain had been falling for hours by the time my shift started. I worked nights at a small roadside hotel just outside a town in eastern Ohio. The place sat beside a long stretch of highway surrounded by woods and empty fields. During the daytime, truckers and families stopped there constantly, but after midnight the hotel became dead silent. Most nights were boring. I'd stand behind the front desk for 8 hours watching the security monitors and occasionally checking someone in. That was it. But one stormy night changed the way I looked at overnight jobs forever. The storm started around 10. Heavy rain hammered the windows so hard it sounded like someone throwing gravel at the building. Thunder shook the lobby every few minutes, and lightning flashes lit up the parking lot in bright white bursts. By 1 in the morning, the roads outside were almost completely empty. I was scrolling through my phone behind the desk when movement outside caught my attention. A man was standing between the hotel's double entrance doors. Not inside. Not outside. Just standing in that small glass section between them. He wore a dark rain jacket with the hood pulled low over his face. Water dripped off him onto the floor, yet he didn't move. He just stared into the lobby. For a few seconds, he slowly looked around the room. Then his eyes locked onto mine. Something about the way he looked at me immediately made my stomach tighten. He wasn't looking at me like a customer. He looked like he was studying me. After a moment, he awkwardly patted his jacket pockets, turned around, and walked back out into the storm. I remember feeling relieved when he disappeared. At first I assumed he forgot his wallet or room key. Still, something felt wrong. He didn't carry luggage. Didn't have a backpack. Didn't even have a car parked near the entrance. A few minutes later, the hotel phone rang. The caller ID showed an outside number. I answered with the usual greeting. The same man's voice came through the line. Soft. Calm. Too calm. Hey, he said. I just parked outside. I've got a small suitcase in my car. Think you could come help me bring it in? That request instantly felt weird. Employees weren't supposed to leave the front desk during night shifts anyway. But even if I wanted to help, why would he need assistance with one small suitcase? Still trying to be polite, I told him to pull his vehicle up to the entrance and I'd help from there. There was silence on the line for several seconds. Then he quietly asked, "Couldn't you just walk out here?" I looked through the glass doors toward the dark parking lot. Rain poured so hard I could barely see past the first few rows of cars. No, irraplia. Bring the car to the front. Another long pause. Then the call disconnected. At that point, I already knew something wasn't right. I locked my phone and kept watching the parking lot. 5 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then suddenly, bang! The outer entrance door flew open. The man stepped back inside. This time he came fully into the lobby. And I immediately noticed something terrifying. He wasn't wet anymore. Not really. His jacket had rain on it, but nowhere near enough for someone who'd just been standing outside in a storm. Meaning he hadn't been standing in the parking lot. He'd been somewhere nearby. Watching the entrance. Watching me. He walked toward the desk, breathing heavily like he'd been running. When he got close enough, I noticed mud smeared across his jeans and sleeves. He smiled. I still need help with that suitcase. His voice sounded different now. More aggressive. I kept my hands under the desk near the emergency button while trying to stay calm. Pull your car up front, I repeated. His smile disappeared instantly. I already took the suitcase out. Then drag it over here. For a second he just stared at me, completely expressionless. Then he leaned slightly over the counter. You really don't want to help me? The way he said it made every alarm in my head go off. I told him if he wasn't checking in, he needed to leave. His eyes slowly drifted toward the hallway behind the desk where employees entered the back office. Then he looked back at me and smiled again. That smile was worse than anything else, because it looked like he knew something I didn't. He raised both hands calmly and backed away. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll leave." He turned around and walked out the front doors into the storm again. I waited until he vanished before locking the entrance remotely. Then I checked the security cameras. At first I didn't see him. The parking lot looked empty. But then lightning flashed across one of the side cameras. And I saw him, standing beside the building directly under my office window, looking up at me. My entire body froze. He hadn't left. He was waiting. I immediately called my manager, but she didn't answer. Then I considered calling the police. But before I could, every light in the lobby suddenly shut off. The entire hotel went dark. For 2 seconds there was complete silence except for the rain. Then emergency backup lights flickered on dimly across the hallways. The storm must have knocked the power out. At least that's what I thought. Until the security monitors came back online. One camera showed the electrical room door downstairs. And it was open. I knew for a fact we kept that room locked. A figure moved across the camera. The man. He'd somehow gotten inside. I instantly ducked below the desk and locked the office door behind me. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow footsteps moving through the dark lobby. Not rushed. Not panicked. Almost relaxed. Like he knew I couldn't escape. The footsteps stopped outside the desk area. For several seconds there was silence. Then came a soft knocking sound on the counter. Top. 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 I held my breath. Then his voice came from the darkness. "You shouldn't ignore guests." I nearly panicked. I quietly grabbed my phone and dialed 911, whispering the situation to the operator. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way, but the nearest patrol car was over 20 minutes out because of the storm. 20 minutes. The footsteps started moving again, this time toward the employee hallway. Toward me. I backed deeper into the office, trying not to make noise. The hallway outside creaked softly. Then the office doorknob slowly turned. Once. Twice. Then violently shook. He started slamming against the door hard enough to rattle the walls. I grabbed a heavy metal flashlight from a shelf and held it like a weapon while the dispatcher stayed on the line. Suddenly the banging stopped. Silence again. Then, a loud crash echoed somewhere deeper in the hotel. A woman screamed from upstairs. My blood went cold. I realized there were still guests staying there. The man had moved on. I cracked the office door open slightly and looked into the hallway. Empty. I could hear distant footsteps pounding up the stairs. Then another scream. Without thinking, I ran out behind the desk and grabbed the emergency master key. I rushed upstairs toward the noise. Halfway down the hallway, I saw a hotel room door wide open. An older couple stood inside terrified. The man from the lobby was at the far end of the hall trying to force open another room. When he saw me, he stopped. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then lightning flashed through the hallway window behind him. And I finally saw his face clearly. I swear he looked excited. Like he was enjoying every second of this. Sirens sounded faintly outside. The man heard them too. He slowly smiled at me one last time before sprinting toward the emergency stairwell. By the time police arrived, he was gone. Officers searched the woods around the hotel for hours but never found him. What terrified everyone most came later. Police checked the security footage. The man had never arrived in a vehicle. He walked out of the woods behind the hotel during the storm. And before entering the lobby the first time, he spent almost 30 minutes standing outside watching me through the windows.